You're listening to Men of Abundance, episode 155, with Brandon Handley. And this is Fatherhood for the rest of us.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
What's up, Men of Abundance? I am Wally Carmichael, your founder and host of the Men of Abundance podcast, the Pay It Forward community, and it is so amazing to be back. In episode 154, I mentioned that I was going to continue pushing through with all of the episodes that I have backed up for you to listen to throughout the holidays. But man, I got to tell you what, I got connected with my family. We went all over. We went to Florida. We went to Georgia. We went to Disneyland, Universal. We just had so much fun, and I was truly maximizing every single minute of my waking moments with my family, my boys, my wife. And man, I just had so much fun. I had so much connection, and I connected with so many other people. I just completely disconnected from everything else social media wise. I posted a few times on social media, but for the most part, it was 100% family oriented, and I don't regret 1 minute of it. This is what it is of living an abundant life, is to be able to do the things that I want to do when I want to do it. And I do pay it forward to as many people as I possibly can. But when it comes to family and being able to spend maximum time with family and quality time, I don't take that lightly, and I take it very seriously, and I expect you to do the very same thing. Of course, we can't neglect the things that, bring us income, and we cannot neglect the things that make our lifestyle possible. But the bottom line is this: none of it matters unless we have family. And that's what I really maximized during this holiday season. I'm really big around family all year long. But when it comes to the holiday season, I don't know, I'm just like a kid in a candy store. I'm like a kid at Christmas, literally. And we just had so much fun. I was exhausted at the end of the day. My boys were just wore out, and it was so good to see them just having so much fun and spending that time with them. And I hope you had the time with your family and are ready for an amazing 2018. I just cannot wait to reveal what I'm bringing out in 2018, and some of you are going to be huge beneficiaries of that. You and your family are going to be huge beneficiaries of what I have planned for you guys in 2018. So, needless to say, I have a lot of catching up to do. I'm going to be posting a lot of episodes. They're going to be random at first for the next couple of weeks, and then we're going to get back on track, and I'll be posting every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday with the Pay It Forward Aloha Friday. So stand by, get ready for some amazing guests, and we're kicking it off right now with Brandon Handley with Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, and then appropriately we're moving right into Larry Hagner with the Good Dad Project. Both extremely amazing programs. I absolutely love what these guys have going on, and I'm looking forward to sharing both of them with you. Because guys, there's no doubt about it that dads are amazing. Many moms seem to really get it right from the start. They just have that natural instinct. That's how women are wired. Well, anyway, that's how my wife is wired. I'll speak for myself and my own personal experience. But us men, we are just a constant work in progress. So when I found Brandon Handley and his podcast, Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, I felt I was home. Because like you, I'm a work in progress. Even after 3 boys, my oldest is 22, I have an 18-year-old and an 8-year-old. I'm still figuring it out. And we all have so much to learn, including Brandon, and he explains that in our conversation. And Fatherhood for the Rest of Us is a great place to continue our learning. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Brandon and bring him right out and share our conversation with you. Now, Brandon Handley is a speaker, author, coach, and podcaster, but he didn't start that way. And we're going to get into that part of the conversation. He has 20 years of experience in the service industry. He was also an inside salesman for a Fortune 500 company. Currently, Brandon is a member of Toastmasters and records shows for his hit podcast, Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. His reason for speaking and podcasting is to help listeners learn how to live with purpose and intent. Brandon accomplishes this via coaching and relating his own transformational experiences. Brandon has been married to his wife, Megan Clark, for 7 years. They reside in Willow Spring, North Carolina, with their 2 sons, Finn and Liam, and a dog named Sophie. Men of Abundance, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Brandon Handley. Brandon, welcome to Men of Abundance, brother. How you doing?
Man, I am fantastic, man. I'm super ecstatic to be here with you on Men of Abundance. I'm having quite an abundant day myself, and I'm just loving life, man.
I'm good to hear that. Where are you having that abundant day at? Where are you at in the world?
I am right outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, in a little place called Willow Spring. Some say there's an S on the end of that. Some say there's not, so it's Willow Spring or Willow Springs, depending on how you find us on the map. But that's where I'm at, brother.
I get it, man. I've been around those parts many, many years ago. Me and some Army buddies were just reminiscing about Fort Bragg and the whole North Carolina experience, and not a terrible place, man. It's pretty beautiful out there.
Yeah, blessed to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, you listen to the show, and we've been communicating for quite a while. You know, I like to start out my day and my podcast with an attitude of gratitude. What else do you have to be grateful for today, man?
Man, I'm grateful for our communications, the ability to do what it is that you and I do, to have these conversations with other men of abundance in our lives. I'm grateful I'm grateful that I get to wake up where I wake up, see the sunshine, and have my children up and running around with me. My dog barking at 6 a.m. in the morning. I'm grateful for any noises, dude. I'm eternally grateful for everything going on today, man. Just always, because today's a great day.
Yeah, it sounds like you're truly connected with everything around you, man. I dig it. So, we're going to get into your story here in just a minute, and I talked a little bit before the show about what you do, what you've been up to, shared your website. I dig your website. I dig everything you got going on. But as you know, here on Men of Abundance, we really like to get really personal and get to know the man behind the abundance. So if you would, let's get a little bit more personal. Share a little bit more deeper information about yourself.
Well, I mean, I'll kind of lean into how I am in the space, right? Kind of was going through life not knowing where or why, taking any directions, or applying any directions, and I ended up with like a pretty good life, man. So pretty grateful for all that. But then I was like, man, how can I how can I participate in my own life, right? And I really started taking stock of that. And as I took stock in it, I realized that there were all these things that I could be doing that I wasn't doing. I mean, I wasn't reading. I wasn't reaching out to anybody. I wasn't part of like any of these men's groups that are all out there. I wasn't taking enough time to be present with my children or any of that. And this past year and a half, I've kind of put all of that into play, lined it all up, and I think a lot of people say stumble forward. Or stumbling towards ecstasy, and that's kind of what I am about, and that's what I am doing with the podcast. Created the podcast called Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, kind of without any clear direction. But I said, let's just get something rolling, right? You start taking action with something, and then the next thing you know, like I admitted the other day, like I really wasn't doing it for probably the right reasons. But like a lot of those movies that you watch all the time, and where most of the main character, they start it for the wrong reasons, but end up doing it for the right reasons. I'm in that latter stage right now where I'm really reaching out and trying to connect with men who are, just trying to do the exact same thing. Who maybe realize that all they've done was check off the boxes that everybody's told them they should, and without questioning it or without, kind of taking an active role in their own lives and walking forward with them, man, and being there for them.
Yeah, I dig it. Since I work with men, and I love guys that are working with kids and, want to be connected with their children, with their own children, let alone other kids in the community. And I see other fatherhood type shows out there and other man type shows. And they're geared towards helping men grow as men, is what most of them are trying to do. Others are just out there floundering, just talking and being men, right? Mm-hmm. But recently I was on one, and I'm not going to mention the name here. It's really not that important. You can make a decision for yourself. But there's another fatherhood podcast out there that has a group, a Facebook group. And in that Facebook group, they're constantly posting, or I've seen a couple times anyway, posting women in the kitchen in underwear and stuff like this. And I'm here to tell you, there was a time in my life where I would welcome stuff like that into my life and into my, view. I'd look for it. I was seeking it. It was just the environment that I grew up in, and the environment that I grew up in, even as a young man, had porn around the house and stuff like this. And guys, I'm here to tell you, man, personally, this is just coming from me, and I'd like to hear your take on it as well, Brandon, but that doesn't do anything for me. In fact, it's taking me the other direction, because I'm trying to teach my boys to respect women and to respect mom. And I want to respect mom. I want to respect my wife. And I don't have daughters, but I would equally want to respect my daughters. And I just don't see that anymore in my life where I'm at today and where I'm going and where I'm trying to lead men to be abundant men, abundant leaders. And you're trying to be the guy that's leading fathers for the rest of us. I just don't see how that helps the cause.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. That's the short answer, right? And how could it? And it's but also, like you said, right? You and I probably both went through phases, right? Where, hey, there it is, and we didn't really pay it any mind. We didn't give it a deeper thought, and mostly because where we were or what we'd gone through in life, that was acceptable, right? And who were we? And look, it's coming from your sergeant, right? And you're around all your peers, and everybody else is in agreement that, hey, this is okay. Who are you to sit there and say, well, this isn't okay? I mean, did you ever have a thought that said this wasn't okay while you were in the midst of it? That's a question right back at you. We can just kind of do a dialogue.
Yeah, no, at the time, absolutely not. In fact, it was all things good. But in reality of it, when I really think of it, yeah, absolutely. I'm looking over my shoulder because I don't want anybody else to see what I'm looking at. If my wife was standing behind me, watching me watch that, it wouldn't have been a good day, bro. It wouldn't have worked out very well. So if you have those feelings, if the hair on the back of your neck standing up, and you find yourself looking over your shoulder to see if somebody else is seeing what you're seeing, chances are, it's not right.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, you gotta frame it up the best way you can, and if you're feeling like it's not aligning correctly somehow, if you're feeling like somebody's looking over your shoulder there, or you get caught, and you're gonna be kind of scandalized, or just to say, just like you said, that it's not a position you want to be caught in, then don't put yourself in that position.
Exactly.
And then I mean, and to move forward from there is to say, if you're a father, and this is something that you're dealing with to this day, absolutely think about your own daughters. I mean, if you've got daughters, is that what you want is that really how you want your children to be raised? Is that where you want to find your children? Is that, or is that, on the flip side of that, or are they just using, it's tough for, they're a model, right? Maybe it's your most, base terms. If you pick up a Playboy or something like that, and then it's like, hey, you're making money or something like that. Where's that threshold, right? Would be another question. But for me, if I had a daughter, that's not where I would want her to. Physical, you gotta get beyond physical.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's all about the mindset in which you're in when you're looking at this type of stuff, because I've been all over Europe and South and Central America. Europeans don't get caught up in the whole nudity thing. In fact, even this will blow your mind if you haven't been out there. Even in Egypt and Israel, they have beaches where women are nude on the beach and men are wearing banana hammocks. Right. I mean, they might as well be naked. it's no big deal in Europe, and it's the context in which you're looking at it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Context, absolutely. If it's listen, if it's for pornographic nature, it's for pornographic nature, and I think that's it's blatant.
Yeah.
Right. If it's for art, if it's for something else, then it is. There's really kind of not. It's not to me. It's not a blurry line. In that sense. And again, yeah, I agree with you. Context, and but in my group, I don't want to see that there. I don't think that's where Fatherhood for the rest of us is focusing our time. I think it's a great conversation piece, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you going down that rabbit hole with me, because it was just on my mind, especially when you brought up what we were talking about before the show. It just fit right in. So as things go, we go through a lot of stuff in life. Many of us have been through many different situations. And here on Men of Abundance, I like to call it that kick in the gut moment that really kind of took you to your knees. And sometimes that kind of changes the trajectory of our life. And we start doing something either outward, meaning for other people, and we just change our lives, or we just have a whole different perspective on our lives. And sometimes that kick in the gut moment doesn't do that. But in either case, I would like for you to share that kick in the gut moment that really took you to your knees and make us feel that.
So while, like I said to you, I think it was like about a year and a half ago, where I was literally, I finally realized that I had control of my own life, right? Where I finally said, I'm the one who makes the decisions, and where I kind of want to go, or where I put my efforts, and nobody else can do that for me. But the kick in the gut was kind of like a slow motion kick in the gut, because about a year and a half before that, I started feeling like this pent up angst, this realization that time was finite, this realization that I had something pressing on me, and I didn't know what it was. And I realized that time was finite. I couldn't focus. I didn't feel like I could focus on anything or do anything with enough intensity. I didn't feel like I was being enough of a person. And in that, I said, you know what I need is I need a silver bullet, Wally, is what I thought to myself. And I thought that the silver bullet was Adderall. I felt like I might have ADHD. Mm-hmm. So I start Googling, adult ADHD. I start looking at all these healthy lifestyle, one of the recommendations, most of the places, they're like, hey, here, you go through this, you develop a healthy lifestyle. And that's a big start to your cure of ADHD. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I don't have the time. I don't want to, yada, yada, yada. I was like, I know who I am, and I'm not going to involve myself with that. So I started Googling. I started looking for, psychiatrists who can prescribe me some pills, right? And I Googled them. I found them. I found like pretty much all the answers to the questions that I felt like were going to be asked. And I went in and I asked them, I said, hey, man, I'm pretty sure I have ADHD. I'm pretty sure that I just need some Adderall to get my head straight, and that'll help me focus. I filled out a questionnaire that had been like photocopied out of a book, right? Like you could see the bent page in the corner, and I was like, it was literally a joke. I felt like it was a joke because I filled out the questionnaire. He goes, yep. He goes, all right, well, I'm going to prescribe you some Adderall and get you going on that. So I go through the first month. And I'm feeling a little bit more focused. I'm feeling something. I think we on our conversation we talked about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So I also had an inkling of how this drug was also supposed to affect me, and whether or not I was going to feel it. Right. Mm-hmm. So the first month I'm like, all right, now I feel it, but not so much. No real adjustment. Go through the next month, and he ups the dosage. And I'm like, it's something there. I can, I'm focusing, and a little bit more. And then I go in the third month, and I was like, yeah, maybe. And he goes, listen, we can up it like all the way to the max, or I can give you like one more. It depends on like how many times you want to keep trying this. I was like, dude, take it to the top, right? Take it to the top. And so he maxes it out, and I'm like focused. I'm like this. I'm running around the house like militant. Like my kids can all, I'm just super hypercritical of everything. My kids can do no good. I'm snapping left and right with my children, with my wife. I'm ultra focused, but the what's funny is I'm not focused on anything that's really doing me any good, right? I'm just focused on random shit, like, shiny objects. I think I played darts for like a month straight, something weird. And then like I blow up on my wife at like a New Year's party, and that sucked. It was just like ridiculous, and I stopped taking it. I stopped taking it like cold turkey. And for a while there, I went through like a depression, Wally. I went through like the closest thing I felt as a depression, right? I was like, well, this was supposed to be my silver bullet. This was supposed to help get me through. I was supposed to. Now what do I do? So I probably went through about 3 or 4 months of like just my own personal pity party, and then this is actually probably around when I started listening to podcasts, and I got a sales coach, and started going out networking and meeting people, and this is where I had the dawning that I had control of my own life. I started exercising, I started meditating, and like my whole life just gelled. Wally, like everything just kind of came together, and the kick in the gut comes probably right as I start beginning the podcast. I listen to the podcast, I get hooked. I'm like, I buy into the dream that I believe in me. Okay, which is something I probably should have bought into a long early, whatever. And I say, you know what? I believe in me. I believe in a message that I have to give, and I'm going to start with fatherhood, because that's the only thing that makes enough sense to me to be in love with for the rest of my life. That's the only thing that to me is going to hold my attention for the next however long I intend to do this. And the kick in the gut comes from I'm sitting here doing the podcast, setting up interviews, going through everything. I'm feeling great. Life has been good. But then my oldest son walks in the room, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, can we go go play or do something? Can you help me do this?" And I look over at him. He goes, "I know. Later, because you're working on something." And that was the kick in the gut. I shut everything down, walked over with him, and did whatever. Like I don't recall what it was that he asked to do. But that was the realization that perhaps if I had not gotten onto this path, went through all that shit, started this podcast, and done all that, then that could have very easily sent him into a different direction for the rest of our lives. But it didn't, and that's kind of my kick in the gut, where I realized that he was more important than whatever the fuck it was that I was working on at that moment.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I feel that because I've had that moment as well. And, your kids walking up to you and wanting to do something, and then you just kind of brush them off. But you got to take that moment. And he probably don't remember what the event was either, but just that he was with Dad. And that's the coolest thing ever, man. I dig it. So what was it specifically, do you think, about, you mentioned that the turning point kind of started when you got the coach, and then you started exercising, getting more physically active. What was it about the coach specifically that you think may have been part of that whole process of the turning point?
The word is process, right? She had a process that we just kind of focused on these things, set goals, going through the vision boards, and kind of going through all those things. These were all things that I'd never really done before, Wally. I know that we get taught to do them, and we're told to do them, kind of going through life. But a lot of us just don't. A lot of us don't write down our goals. We don't try to write them. We don't dare write down our goals, because maybe we're afraid that if we write them down, somebody's going to come pick up a book and find out that we were writing about some shit that we never got around to. Right? Mm-hmm. We're going to get caught. We're going to expose ourselves. So these were some things that I'd never done, and writing down these goals, putting together a vision board, actually sharing them with somebody else, and having them encourage you to do those things that you want to do in your life. That was exciting, and that was a turning point. The exercising, I'd just never done it my entire adult life, really, and I realized that going in and getting that exercise and having those endorphins going was helping me burn off some of the energy that was keeping me from focusing, because I had like all this pent up energy, and I wasn't really doing anything with my body. I wasn't fat or anything like that, so I wasn't like misshapen, but I wasn't in my best shape. And and then like at the turn, actually at the very beginning of this year, I, I I could barely swim, but I enrolled myself into a sprint triathlon and did it, and I just felt great to set a goal and go do it. Same with the podcast, just get it going, get up and do something that you want to do, right, wrong, crisp, clear message or not, man. All that stuff is just like, I get it. Trust me, I do. But it's like I'm not gonna hold somebody, but I'm not gonna hold myself down because I'm not perfect, Wally.
Wow, that's a hell of a statement right there, man, for real, because that's exactly right. And so many people do hold themselves down because they're trying to get that perfect. They want everything, all the ducks in a row. You're always going to have a duck wandering off somewhere, man. You're never going to have everything. The stars are not going to align until you just take action, until you just do something. And there's so many other outlets, and it's just important to me for people to realize that and take those other avenues.
Well, I mean, well, I gotta ask you, man. When you were a kid, was sitting in a room for 8 hours a day on the top of your mind, or was like, was that what your body was meant to do?
No, absolutely not. I still can't sit still.
So I mean, it's but even like me, right? Like and yourself, like you're saying. So I found, and this is one of the things I found over this past year is like if I don't get up like and go do like an hour's worth of exercise or something else like that, I can't focus. Or something else. It's my needle's not pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I get up, I'll sit down at the job 30, 40 minutes or so, maybe 50-ish, and I'll have to get up and go walk around. There's some pull-up bars outside the building. I'll go do a few pull-ups, and then I'll come back in. I'm freaking laser focused. I'm just back at it. It's just That's just who I am as a person. And most guys just can't sit, and boys specifically cannot sit in a room for 4, 6, 8 hours on end. And now they've taken away, physical exercise out of some of the classrooms, out of some of the schools and stuff. It's just asinine.
No, I mean, I had a great conversation where there's another school somewhere in Austin where basically the kids play for half the day. Mm-hmm. Because and would you look at would we out of the blue go sit a child down for 8 at home? Do you see that happening? Sitting your child down for 8 hours a day?
No, man.
Right?
My parents tried to ground me and my brother one time for a week, and it lasted like a day and a half.
They probably threw you out of the house. Probably get out of the house.
That's exactly what they did.
But I mean, we weren't made to sit still, dude. If we were, we'd be trees. If we were made to stay in one place, we would have roots. Mm-hmm. We're not. We don't.
Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So with Fatherhood for the rest of us, how long have you been doing that, by the way?
Since March.
Oh, okay. So what's the effect that you're having on other guys so far? I'm in your group. I'm reading through the stories. I love it. What's your favorite one? What's some good news stories that are coming out of that so far? Either for yourself or for the other guys.
Whenever somebody reaches out and just says, hey, you're having an impact. Those are stories. I've had people come out and just say, hey, you're helping me through my day. You being there, running the group. That's really helping me get through fatherhood for me. I've gotten to interview some people that are just would have been beyond something I would have been able to do, man. Like I've interviewed multiple authors. I'm getting ready to interview a UFC fighter. I just interviewed a Navy SEAL the other day. As a matter of fact, I had to laugh because I called him up. I was like, dude, I think you're late. I didn't like that was not I didn't say it like that, obviously. I thought he was running behind, and so I sent him a message. I sent him a message, and I was like, I think our wires might have gotten crossed. No big deal, right? And in the back of my head, if I'm being honest, I thought he blew me off. Right? I was like, all right, well, I'm cool with that too. Like, if you don't feel like this is someplace you should be, that's cool. But I felt like he should you respectfully let somebody know. And so I was like, you know what? I've got his phone number. I'm gonna pick up the phone and call him. Essentially, I called up like a Navy SEAL to be like, hey, you're late. And I thought that was just funny, right? I'm like, what do I? And I didn't even think about that till a day later. I've made numerous connections, connecting with yourself, connecting with other men, and just knowing that other men are going through some of the same stuff that you've gone through. As I always like to say, it's not just so much going through your shit, right? Everybody going through something. It's not necessarily just that. What I like to do is celebrate life in there as well. I like to celebrate whatever it is you're working on. Like, I celebrated our conversation that very day. I was like, man, you got to connect with Wally. He's awesome, right? You got to connect with some of the other people in here. I don't even care. Like, the engagement's important. Yeah, it is. I get that. But I'm not as concerned with this engagement as I am with impacting somebody's life that day, one person, two people. I'm more concerned about men's ability to know that there's a place they can go to have conversations or just listen in and feel like they've been refueled by in some respects, and that they don't have to talk. They can just roll right back out. If they've gotten everything they need, get back out. It's not a prison.
Yeah, absolutely. I dig it. And, I'm guessing because of what you just said that the way I start my show is, I never want to give the guys the idea that I have it all figured out, that I'm the most abundant dude out there, and I do dub myself an abundance, thought leader, but I don't have it all figured out, and that's part of the reason why I started this podcast, so I could have conversations with other guys who have it a little bit more figured out than I do, and then maybe I can pass that on. Who was the Navy SEAL that you was talking to?
Larry Yatch.
Okay, you got to get Eric Davis on the show.
Larry's going to make the connection, as a matter of
Awesome.
fact.
Yeah. He wrote the book Raising Men, Navy SEALs' Way of Raising Their Sons. Great dude. He was episode 6. I had a conversation with him.
I'll have to check that out. He those two are I think they're peers, and they work together in a number of ways. So that and I think that the other thing that's been amazing is just doing it, man. Just doing something. Just realizing that we have this ability to turn on the microphone and send our message out to potentially. Facebook is up to, or the world is up to 2 billion or 7 billion and change, right? So we are best case scenario, should the world just all shut up for whenever we're talking and turn us on, it's available. We are speaking to the world when we do this, and it's kind of a powerful thing, man. It's just like when have we ever had the ability to do this freely before?
Oh, absolutely. So check this out. Yesterday I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine who's starting a martial arts business, and we've been working together off and on. He's really good at SEO and websites and stuff, and I'm a little bit got on the business side, so we collaborate. And he was like, dude, so how many downloads you got, and who's listening to your show? And he's really intrigued about that part. So I pulled it up on my app on my phone and looked at the back office, and I hadn't looked back there to see how many, I see the downloads pretty much every day that I log in, but I don't see where everybody's listening. And I mean, there were 8 downloads in Pakistan and like several hundred downloads in Japan and Korea. I'm like, this is crazy that right now I think it was like 58 different countries. Nothing like, those other guys are, over 100 countries, but I was like, that is crazy that people in 58 different countries are listening to my voice and soon to be listening to your voice on Men of Abundance. And then your shows, it's just amazing that we're making an impact and people actually care enough to download our voices in these other countries that it just blows my mind, man. The technology is really cool.
Absolutely. And for me, Wally, I'm going to be honest, even if somebody doesn't download it today or tomorrow, at least I'm putting it out there. Mm-hmm. You know what? What else can you do?
You can go old school and go and blog and.
Yeah, this format, I think is wonderful. The ability and then the conversations, the people, the people are amazing, right? Because we all have this passion for something. That's why we jump on here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Brandon, we're at the point in the show where we're going to pay it forward. You ready to do that, brother?
Yeah, man.
Great. So share with our abundant leaders 1 to 3 actionable steps that they can take today.
Well, listen, I think that if anybody hasn't established some type of daily routine or attempted it, to try it, such as meditation. If you haven't done any mindfulness because you think it's woo-woo, because you think it's sissy, because you don't want to get caught with it, because anything, I you're sadly mistaken. I'm not even gonna. I don't care. You must go try it somehow. You must go try it. You must. Headspace is the one that I started myself off with, and if it feels a little uncomfortable at first, that's okay. Keep going forward, man. You must implement some type of mindfulness, and it's not to it's. At this point, I look at it as a treat, as an indulgence. That is my ice cream. That is my daily ice cream, dude. So if you're not doing any type of mindfulness, it doesn't have to be long either. You don't have to sit there and be like, all right, well, and you don't have to do it sitting cross-legged out in the sun, facing east or west or facing a mountain. Any of that shit. You just close your eyes, do something mindful. That is going to change your life. The exercising daily, do something to get yourself moving. Again, this is, I was told to do it my entire life, and I said, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. You must get yourself moving. Get yourself moving for yourself. If you've got children, get yourself moving so your children see you moving. Do it because you are being watched. Do some exercise. Do something you want to see your children doing. I think I can leave it with that too. Like, whatever you want your children to be doing, start doing that.
Man, that right there is an amazing piece of advice, is to do something that you want to see your children doing. I mean, most parents, quite frankly, are doing exactly the opposite. They don't want their kids to do certain things, yet they're doing it every day, and their kids are seeing it. So, very sound advice. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
Well, daily habits, and you just talked about this, and so we'll get a little bit more into some of your other habits other than the mindfulness and the exercise. What other daily habits make the biggest impact in your life?
So this show's attitude of gratitude. Every morning, I'll grab my cup of coffee. Well, depending on where I'm at, but most mornings I'll grab my cup of coffee. I will go sit on the front porch, sit in the sun, and write down 3 things I'm grateful for. And then I will write down 3 things that I'm learning, or I feel like I'm learning, or I've recently learned. And that's another thing that if I don't do that, it's missing noticeably from my day. There's science in that, right? I don't have stats or anything like that, but there's a whole bunch of science that points to just having a grateful outlook and just writing those things down. It really allows you to just have a moment of kind of like peace and serenity, because you're just focused for just that short period of time on things that are good.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same way. When I don't do that, and I've done it where I didn't write it down, I would just, kind of lay in bed just before I get up, and I'd do my little prayer, and then I'll do my attitude. Somebody just pops into my mind, and I'll just, mentally send them some good, some good thoughts or whatever, and I'll do my attitude of gratitude. But when I don't, there's something about writing it down that really, call it what you want, guys, but it really puts a pep in my step for the rest of the day. That along with my exercise and everything. If I don't do that, the rest of the day is just kind of like blah. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. Well, the one good thing is that if you realize, to me anyways, what I realize is that if I've missed it during the daytime and I'm feeling crappy, I'll pull over, I'll stop, whatever it is I'm kind of doing, and just do it then. And it takes an effect noticeably right then. So it does, to me, I think that it's just something you should do daily. When you do it, doesn't really matter as long as you do it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you said that, because so many guys just say, oh, crap, I didn't do it this morning, so I'll do it again. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll start better tomorrow. Start now. Yeah. Stop what you're doing and just do it now. So what are you reading now or listening to that you would recommend to our abundant leaders, and why? What
am I reading now? I am reading a book called Are You Ready to Succeed? Give me a second. Let me just grab it. I'm gonna butcher this gentleman's name. It's Are You Ready to Succeed? Subtitle: Unconventional Strategies for Achieving Personal Mastery in Business and in Life. It's written by Srikumar Rao. I'm only a couple pages into it. Basically, it's a book to transform your mindset, way of thinking. But it's not just that. It's set up to kind of do it with a group of people, so that you kind of all go through it together. And I've recently set it up with a few other men, and taking it slowly, doing the exercises, and kind of blowing my mind. If I were you, look up there's a TED talk called "You're Hardwired for Happiness." Sri Kumar Rao, it's Rao is his last name. That's what inspired me to get his book. I had the book on the shelf for about 8 months because of all the efforts that I knew would go into it. Because it was something that I wanted to do. I didn't want to just read. Many of the books you just read, so I wanted to really do this one. So that book is one that I'm going through right now, going through that slowly. The Bhagavad Gita is something I'm actually reading now too, just to get a different perspective. And that was a recommendation from a friend of mine who was one of the first people that kind of taught me how to meditate. And so I said, "Hey man, I have some questions." And he said, "Read this book." So I'm going through that, and then finally I'll end it with I just finished up Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I'm not sure if you've read that book, but that is kind of one of the reasons why I've cut back on doing. I was doing a daily podcast, but I don't think that I was doing it for the right reasons, and so I've cut back on doing that. And Essentialism has a big part to play in that. And I'm going to end it with in the book Essentialism. Greg McKeown says, kind of daily. This is something I'm trying to put in, that I am putting into my daily life, is to read a little bit of inspirational literature every day for about 10 to 20 minutes. And the ones, I'm going to list off some of the ones that he recommends. You can get 99% of these for free on the internet in PDF format through like archive.org or elsewhere. But there's the Wisdom of Confucius, the Torah, the Holy Bible, Tao, the Meaning of the Glorious Quran, As Man Thinketh, The Essential God, Gandhi, Walden, or Life in the Woods, the Book of Mormon, the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, and the Upanishads were all recommendations by him. And that's one of the reasons. That's an additional reason for me to be reading the Bhagavad Gita right now. And that's not to say, sorry for this long rambling answer, that's not to say that I don't have, or I'm not interested in Stoicism or the meditation. And I have these books also, Marcus Aurelius. But the thing for me, Wally, is it's like when you're surrounded by everyone kind of focused on the same thing. I see a lot of Stoicism these days, at least in the circles that I travel, and I love it, and I think it's awesome. But I'm very curious about some other things. So what are some other people? What's not being looked at? What's not being talked about that has inspired others, such as Wayne Dyer, such as I'm a big fan listening to Alan Watts, dude. If you're not listening to Alan Watts and you have any an ounce of spirituality in you and you just want to take it deeper, put him on YouTube and that too will,
Alan Watts. I had not heard of Alan Watts before. Most everybody else that you mentioned, or quite a few of those you mentioned, that I have connected with or been exposed to anyway, but I'll have to check out Alan Watts as well. And I'll have all of that linked up in the show notes as well.
Yeah, if you need, actually, I have links to all those, just about all those books, Wally. I can give you the links to the free PDFs, which I made a list of it in my group because while yes, everybody wants to make some money, and I will post affiliate links here and there to something that I think is worthwhile, I also do my best to, if I can find it in a free format, share that with people. It's not always about making a quick buck or being paid for your passions and all that shit, man. Sometimes it's okay to just do nice things without expecting something in return.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that. Yeah, that'll save me a lot of time if you send me those links, and I'll just go ahead and drop those in there. And if they're affiliate links, cool.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, so none of them are. But the Alan Watts, man, absolutely. And I got turned on to Alan Watts through reading Tim Ferriss's Tools of the Titans, and whoever came up with Brain Pickings, whoever is the creator of Brain Pickings, she'd mentioned Alan Watts, and that's a rabbit hole in of itself, Alan Watts.
Yeah. I dig Tim Ferriss. I've been listening to him probably since I started listening to podcasts. He's one of the first guys I got turned on to. But damn, that book, that's a big book, man. His last book, Tools of the Titans.
I put it on a speed reader app, and I just chewed through it. And actually, that was difficult to do because I was stopping the app while I read it. Like there was so much information to take in. There were so many ideas that would just that I had to stop and pause it. He started off as like, teaching speed reading. I'm not sure if you're a fan of that, but like there's a lot of apps out there these days that can kind of help you chew through some of those books faster, if that's your thing.
Well, that's funny you bring that up because I've always considered myself a slow reader. I don't say it out loud very often because, as you know, you are what you say, basically. But I am. I've always been a slow reader, especially when I read out loud. I like to read, and it depends on the subject matter, of course. I'll just tear right through some stuff like super quick. And I do consume a lot of books on audio. But that's a good point. I'll have to check that out because I do want to get into that book. But that book specifically, I thumbed through some of it when I was in a bookstore the other day, and I've just got so many books around me that I haven't even gotten into yet that I'm just chopping at the bits to get to. I prefer physical books, especially books like that I know has a lot of data, has a lot of lessons and stuff. I like to highlight, make notes in the book, all that kind of stuff. So I'll have to figure out how to get through them.
Yeah, no, it's tough, right? It's kind of like a pick your poison. When some of the books I prefer to read slowly, right? So not every book is meant for me, anyways, to be in a speed reader app.
So, what do you feel holds most people back from living a life of true abundance?
Themselves. I mean, there's just their ability to see life abundantly. You can see it however you want, man, and that's your choice. And there's not always a willingness to do that. Some people are afraid that if they, see it, that they're going to have to believe that it's possible, and that could shatter everything they've built their lives on.
That's one of the top two answers that I get when I ask that question well over 130 times is, number one is the four-letter word, fear. Number two is themselves, which many times links back to fear. And themselves, exactly what you just said, means so many other things. And guys, that's why I'm here. That's why people like Brandon and myself are here, because we want to help you get out of your own way. So many people, like Brandon brought up earlier, that's why I specifically asked the question, what did the coach do for you? Because so many guys are just afraid to, number one, admit that they know they want more, but they're afraid to admit that they may need some help to take that next step, to move up to that next level, to improve your foxhole, as I'm always saying, which I think you should always be doing no matter what in family, faith, finances, and fitness. So, I just really appreciate that answer, Brandon.
No, Wally, I mean, I'll give you two more. Don't mind. First of all, it's hard to see the picture from within the frame, right? So, you're the picture, but you can't get an outside view, man. What do you know 100% about yourself? Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes sometimes somebody coming in and giving you a fresh set of eyes and having those conversations with you and seeing you as you really are on a first impression. And they have the ability to say, man, I see you're amazing at XYZ. I see what you're doing, and that's powerful. Whereas, that person may not have that same feeling about themselves, but once somebody else sees that and echoes that and is that reflection for them, that's powerful, man. That can take you to where you didn't think you could go. But the funnier thing is, even you're already there. Mm-hmm. You don't know you're there. And then fear. Well, I mean, this is just something that I came up with yesterday. You can feel free to cut this out. You could feel free to call it woo woo. But I feel like I've redesigned fear for myself, and that is to say, I don't look at fear as keeping me out of danger. I look at fear and those repeat instances where fear just keeps replaying an instance, and all I see is fear. Well, what if really those images keep popping up over and over and over and over to show me what's good, and I refuse to look at it? I need to start looking at what's good in that replay, because the replay keeps coming up. I'm the referee. I'm the rule maker. It's up to me to decide, whether or not I want to see that as being able to catch on fire, or if I want to see that as being able to catch fire.
Yeah, great perspective. I absolutely love that. And I agree. And that's staying in there. So what does living a life of abundance mean to you, Brandon?
Man, it really just means waking up every day and being grateful for what I do have. I mean, that's the short.
Yeah. And what is that specifically to you as far as what you have?
Man, I've got my loving wife. I've got my children. I've got my mind faculties. I can see out of both eyes. I'm feeling in all of my fingers. I've got people that'll still talk to me no matter what it is I do. Right. I've got food. I've got everything I need, man. I don't know what else I can't be abundant for.
Yeah. You know what I didn't hear there, and this is consistent with everybody I've had a conversation with. I didn't hear much about the material stuff, the cars, the house, all this kind of stuff. I've had conversations with multimillionaires. Let's see, somebody like Timothy Sykes, who literally wrote $1 million check to Pencils of Promise. And he said in our conversation that he could be a billionaire. He could easily be a billionaire. He just has no desire to be a billionaire. He knows millionaires and billionaires that they're just not happy because they have so much crap. And Tim did too. Tim has his toys and stuff, and so do many other guys that I know. But that's not what defines them. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they can get rid of it all. And They love the connections. They love the relationships. And, just like anybody else, Tim was young and dumb, and he had a point in his life, and I had a point in my life where everything was about, getting that Ferrari and Mercedes and a giant house on the hill where nobody could see me run around my backyard naked if I wanted to, I mean, that's not what's important when it really comes down to it. And the sooner, especially for the young guys who are listening out there, the sooner you figure that out, I truly believe the more successful you're going to be. I see people posting, who wants to be a millionaire? When are you going to be a millionaire? It's not about the $1 million, dude. It's about what that gives you, who you have to become along the way, like Jim Rohn always says. I think it was Jim Rohn or Zig Ziglar, one of the two. I was getting them mixed up. But they said, strive to become a millionaire, not for the money, but because of who you have to become along the way. Right. And the relationships and the connections you have to build along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I dig that, man. Really do.
Well, I mean, I think that you and I both come from, when you come from a place of not necessarily non-abundance, when you come from a place where you don't have a lot of material things to begin with, and I was also blessed with, my mom kind of, straight out of the I was born in San Francisco, straight out of the 70s, had the hippie mom where the perspective has never for me been material. So for me, it was learning how to be material, and now I'm doing my best to shed what I've been taught again.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, bro. I dig my toys, man. I love my stuff, but sure that's not what what drives me, man.
That's not the motivator.
Yeah. So let's be real about that. So we're gonna close this up, brother. And before we do, what did we not talk about? We talked about a lot, but what did we not talk about that you'd like to ensure that our abundant leaders get out of our conversation?
Man, I think we really covered it all. I think what you're doing is awesome. The presentation of what you're doing, the questions. I think I love all of them. Where your head's at and what you're doing for men, I think is amazing. So I don't think there's much else aside from telling people where they can get a hold of me. But that's about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's do that. I mean, Fatherhood for the rest of us.com is one. Tons of resources on there. All kinds of stuff you got going on over there at that website. What else would you like to share to make sure the guys connect with you?
Just go to Facebook, connect with me, Brandon G. Handley. I'm on other places, but again, I'm cutting out like all those other places right now. So just really find me on Facebook and Fatherhood for the rest of us, and you can connect there.
Yeah, taking advice from that essentialism, right?
Yeah, man. I got no time, man. It's a mess.
Yeah, you just got to put your time where it's most important and most valuable, and you're going to connect where guys are like you were at. So connect there. Got it. Totally get it. All right, brother. I appreciate your time, man. It's been a great conversation. I knew it would be, just like our other conversation for your show. So, brother, go out and do amazing things today, and go out and live your life of abundance.
Absolutely. Well, thanks.
Aloha. All right, guys, as Brandon mentioned, getting control of your life is extremely liberating. It's very empowering to actually have control of things that are going on in your life as much as you can have control as possible. And guys, you've heard me say it so many times before. None of us can do this alone. Not one of us can do this alone. We all need each other to improve upon ourselves and to improve upon our families. You've heard it before. It takes a village to raise a family. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise you. And you're not done growing. You're far from done growing. I hope you're not done growing. If you think you're done growing, then you really need to listen much closer. Find somebody, find a group of men, find a group of people that you can relate with and connect with them and help each other grow. Work through the issues, talk about your issues. Don't be afraid to talk about your issues, and God forsake, don't be afraid to talk about your emotions. Come on, guys. Women have this figured out. We don't have to be all this machismo, masculine bullshit. You know, it just closes each other off. The fact of the matter is we need to be and connect with who we are and our feelings and have these hard conversations. It's when we have these hard conversations that we can actually grow as men and become much better fathers. Now, go out and live your life of abundance. And men, make sure to pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.